Oh, yeah.
Today we're taking a quick walk around the brand new digital controller by Denon DJ, the Denon MC7000. It does look a lot like the one they released earlier, the MCX8000, but minus the screens and some buttons moved around. But the 7000 does not take the USB drives like the 8000 does. But there is a lot that is similar, and I am kind of impressed some stuff that they finally did on these two controllers. And we're going to take a look at the 7000 today up close and do a quick walk around. We're going to start with the front, but they didn't give us a front view. They gave us a top view and a back view, so we're going to have to kind of just look. But there are only two things on the front that I can tell from looking at the pictures, and that is the headphone out and the curve control for the fader. Now, it does say 1/4 and 1/8 inch headphone out. I don't know. Like I said, I can't see from the view, so I can't tell if there's two different plugs. Or they're just telling you with an adapter you can, go to the 1/4 if not. But the cool thing is they put the curve control on the fader on this one. They have it also on the 8000, but they did not have it on the 4000. And a lot of people who do scratching or maybe just fade in, that they wanted that control to change that manually on the front, and now the 7000 has that. Now let's take a look at the back. And next to the power button and the power plug, you see two USB ports. And what that is that you are able to connect two different laptops to this. It has two internal sound cards with switches on the top we're going to take a look at in a little bit. If you have two guys DJing and you want to switch back and forth seamlessly without any sort of dead air or anything, you can do that with this. Or if you're like a wedding DJ and you use a second backup computer, you can have both plugged in. In case something goes down, you just flip one little switch on the top and it goes right to the second computer instantly. And I thought that was really cool. I thought they should have been doing that a long time ago, but they just started a couple years ago, and I'm glad to see it integrated into some of the new technology. Next to the USB ports, you see two microphone inputs. One is that universal XLR 1/4 inch, and the other one is just regular 1/4 inch, and they do have individual controls on the top that we're going to take a look at in a little bit. Next over, we have 4 RCA inputs with the phono line switch and the ground, so that you are able to connect other sorts of things to it, turntables, CDJs, or whatever kind of sound input you want there. They give you 4 channels on there to do that, and on top there are also switches for that, so you can take a look at that here in a few minutes. On the outs, something that I'm very happy to finally see is XLR on both the booth out and the master out. Before we had some 1/4 inch on the booth out, and before that I think it was RCA only on the booth out on some of the other controllers, but now it's nice to see XLR on everything. And next to that is the little unbalanced RCA out in case you need that. Some places you plug in, you might need just the RCA out, with the stereo mono switch, which I use and some other DJs use, so that no matter where you're at, all the speakers hear the same things. A lot of clubs and bars are designed in mono just so that everybody hears the same thing and things aren't split. And that is everything on the back. Now let's take a look at the top, the spot where we all spend most of the time. And we're going to start at the bottom center, work our way up, and then hit the two sides. First thing we see on this that I really think is cool, and they also put it on the 8000, is the changeable crossfader. So if you damage it or you want to put something else in there, it is replaceable quite easily, and you don't have to tear things apart like you did on some of the other controllers. Next up are obviously the volume controls, and they do have the fader start there. I'm not a fan of that, but some people like it, so it's there if you need it. Next up is the volume for the sampler, so that if you're playing individual samples, you have a quick switch right there to be able to turn them up or down. And that's one of the things we're going to notice about this controller, is that they're starting to put a lot of stuff that was in the software, whether, whatever you use, and it does take Serato, and it does come with Serato, but it is compatible with Virtual DJ, and I did read something yesterday from one of the Denon people that said when it's released that it also will be Tractor compatible. So when people talk about Serato and like, oh, I use something else, I can't use this, pretty much every controller can use everything, because it's still just a program and hardware and MIDI talking to the two. So you're not, committed to one or the other. You can do whatever you want, switch back and forth if you want. So it all is about if there is MIDI mapping for it, and that's one of the things that before a lot of the stuff like that, you had to use the program's controls to change it, like the volume on the sampler, but now there's starting to be a lot of dedicated buttons and knobs on the controllers, and that's what we're going to see on this one, a lot of that. A little further up you see the through switches, and above that is the Q buttons for headphone monitoring on each channel. Next up is again one of those things that's dedicated to where I had to do some programming on it before, or it was on, in a weird spot, but there are high-low filters on each channel that are dedicated right there. Back to the center again, you have a split Q button on the dead center, which they moved that on the 6000, and I'm not even sure if it was on the 4000, but what it does is for those of us who use split Q headphones, you can turn it on and off with a quick button right on top. Nothing fancy, it's right there. So if you use that, that is great. And then you have the split volume on that, and then the volume for the headphones on that, which I think is really great that everything's right there. Again, everything is getting really dedicated on that there's buttons for that and not going into the program for everything. Now up through on the right and left side, obviously you have the low, mid, and high, and then your gains above that. Something that was neat on this, that on some of the other ones it was split, that you have an individual meter for the sound on each one of the channels, plus a master left and right. So that was kind of neat to see that. And above and below the master level meters is the master volume and the booth volume that are right there ready to grab. Next up, a little bit further in the center, you have your liner UBS switches for every single channel, which I think that's great. And above that is the unique thing that they just added, was the fact that you can have two computers hooked up to it, and you see the switches there on the right and left, USB 1, USB 2 on the channel. So that literally gives you one button hit, and then you're switching computers, and that's all there is to it. So if you had some sort of tag team going on with somebody else, or you're switching DJs in between sets, and opening DJ, closing DJ, whatever, or if you just want to use two computers, you have the ability right there to do that with just one click of the button. Left and right side are just mirrors of each other, so we're going to take a look at both of them a little bit, but mainly just the one side. And we're going to start all the way down to the button with the two parameter buttons, which is really cool that they've always been there, and you can use them for a lot of different things. I kind of re-MIDI map mine, but that's up to you. We have the loop controls instant, so if you have it set, it's right there, just one button hit, and then you can use the other buttons to double it or take it in half. So if you just want to, set a beat that is 8 beats and then cut it back to 4 or whatever, you can do that with one button hit. Next above that is the shift button, which you use it on a whole bunch of stuff on here. For example, the buttons across the top there that say Q loop, etc., you're going to see the Q loop button, and if you hit the shift, it then becomes the flip, like on the other side where it says velocity sampler. If you hit the shift button, it then becomes the pitch. So that's used on a lot of things like that, so I think that's really cool. I use it a lot on programming because I do a lot of MIDI mapping. Next to that are 8 very colorful velocity sensitive pads that can be used for quite a few things. 8 different cue points or whatever, and again, depending on what software you use, they are used for different things, but they're large and very accessible. Next to that is the play pause. Above that, the cue, the sync, the beat grid, adjust and slide with the shift buttons that can be doing other things on that. Above that is the slip and vinyl, depending on what you're setting on there. Then dead center is that 6-inch platter that is very nice. If you use the 8000, it's very nice. And also, they have the LED indicators that go all the way around that, so you're able to, see where you're at on that. If you want to look down as you're scratching or something, you can see where it's at. It's not the most, precise thing, but it is good. Off to the left is one of my complaints about these is they started putting the pitch faders all the way to the right and left, and for those of us who have been doing it for years, the pitch fader is always to the right of the platter so that when you're scratching, so like this picture right here, I would be scratching with my left hand, my pinky is not pushing that pitch fader all over the place. It takes something to get used to. If you're like that, I still would rather have it on the right side. I've been doing right side my whole life, so that sometimes when I do the pitch adjustment on the left side and I'm nudging it, I have to actually cross my hands so that my right hand, which is always push the pitch fader, is now pushing the pitch fader. So it's kind of difficult, but still it's part of change in life. What are you going to do? Off to the right of platter, you get the deck choice, 1 or 3. So that becomes in your software. If you're running 4 decks, you can automatically with one button switch between them, and you're using the next deck over, deck 3 instead of deck 1, so that you can switch things in and out or run 4 at the same time if you wish. Moving on up, we get into a lot of the filters and add-ons, which I think it's back to what we're saying before about that there are dedicated buttons for stuff now, which is very nice. Off to the left, you have the key adjust and sync, and that is for DJing with keys, or as they say in harmony DJing or harmonic DJing, where that your songs are in a certain key and you're not playing a second one that's in a conflicting key, and it sounds like someone hitting 2 keys on the piano that are not harmonized or hitting a wrong note as they're playing. So that's what it does. It lets you choose and roll between them and pick songs that are, or automatically, like this does, set them for you so that you can have two songs that aren't in the right harmony, and you select it and they're in the right harmony. So there's a lot of different things, again, depending on what program you're using, and the sync lock on that. And next to that is the sensor or the reverse. So basically, you know, if it's in that shift mode where you hit the shift button, then the song is playing backwards in reverse. But if you just hit it as is, you can censor out certain words. But as songs pass very fastly through in words, it's a lot of times that's impossible. So most of the time it's easier just to download a clean version. But in case you can't and you need to do that, that button is right there for you. Moving on up is the needle drop, and basically that is a very fast scan of the song. So as you move your finger across that, you're advancing the song very fast, so that if you need to get to a point, you can do that really quickly, as if you were picking up the needle on a record and just moving it over real quick. Off to the left, you see the mic control, and that is for mic 1. Mic 2 is on the opposite side. You have a high-low control, a mic on and off, and a talk-over switch. Mic 2 is a little different over here. You have the volume, you have just a tone, and then below that you have the echo for mic 1 and mic 2, the on-off switch, and the echo button if you choose to use that. Dead center is FX1, and obviously on 2 you have FX2, and the assign buttons 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on what deck you want that effect to go to. Again, these are factory settings. I do a lot of MIDI mapping so that those buttons then become instant one hits, so I don't need to move the different knobs on there to choose what I want. And as you see, that there is FX select for each one of those, and then you have a minimum and maximum on each one of those, and beat tap, which is really cool because you can both set the effect on the BPM, whatever you have set, so you can manually set that, or also if your indicator drops for your downbeats are off on some of the programs, you can just tap it and automatically set them, and that's what that tap button is for. And above that is an adjustment on the beats. Again, the effects, depending on what program you use, how they're going to work is depending upon the program. So that's something you're going to have to take a look at in the future, but I think it's kind of neat. They give you a lot of buttons to choose from. Next up is the browse control, which I use a lot, and on some of the previous controllers you had one in the center for both decks, but they're split on this per deck. So you can just reach over to the left and do the stuff on the left deck and the right deck, and you're not confused in where stuff's going, and load them on and off easily. We have a dedicated back button, so if you're going between your different folders or whatever, you just hit the back button. You're jumping areas, whether it's your holding area or your main or off to a different folder, you can do that. And the select and load, rolling through the different songs, and then just press down on that, and it automatically loads it onto that deck. Below that, the buttons are the prep buttons, the file history, the panels. The panels are, again, for certain programs you can jump over, like I know for virtual DJ and different ones, that you can jump over to an area where you're looking at your recording area, so that if you want to record your set, you're there, or whatever the effects, and by hitting that panel, it just opens and closes that so you can get to that. One more dedicated thing that they added here, again, I think it's cool they're putting a lot of dedicated stuff on here so that I don't have to do as much MIDI mapping, is the pitch play mode, and that is for scratching or whatever. If you've seen any of the videos out there, the guy scratching or playing in the pitch mode, you'll understand that. It's kind of hard for me to describe unless you see it out there, but basically it lets you switch on the different modes, different pitch modes really quickly, and I think it's kind of cool. Again, go out and look for the video on that, and it kind of will explain it better. And that's pretty much the walk around of the 7000. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to have more information in the future. Again, currently, as this video is out, Denon literally has this thing under glass at the expo. But in the future, we're going to be able to get our hands on it. And I'm kind of excited myself to get my hands on it and see what it's like. And when we get that and do some testing, we'll be sure to give you guys some great hands-on videos. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, this is DJ Michael Joseph saying take care and God bless.